Okay, let me take you through that process again. We'll try one more still life, a slightly different arrangement, perhaps a different approach. Again, we're going to draw light, loose, draw large, draw and redraw, holding our pencil with our eraser in our palm. Okay, we want to think about the whole composition and how they relate to one another before we worry too much about each individual. You have to be okay with your objects looking a little messy in the beginning. Okay, we will eventually fix them. That's why it's important to draw light. And again, you want to be looking at the overall shapes and look for those alignments. Look at where one object is in relation to another. Look at how they overlap each other. If you look at this book here, you can see the edge of it lines up with approximately the center of this. Look at where the top of this cup here is aligned with the teapot, so on and so forth. So with this, I think again, let's make some marks on our paper. You know, at our upper limit here, I'm going to go a little bit closer to the top because I want to expand this. I'm going to draw it a little bit larger. I know our book's going to come over here somewhere. I know this book we don't, you know, we want to make sure we keep it on the page. The base of that is going to be maybe down in here somewhere. And then the cup over in here. So again, we enlarge it, we fit it on the page, but we leave ourselves a little bit of, you know, breathing room here, a little bit of elbow room. You don't want to go right, you don't want to go off the paper and too close to the edge. So actually I think I will start with the book again because we want this book, it's going to end up center, it's going to end up centered on this. Okay, so it's important to find out where we start, where this corner is in relation to the overall. Here's center of the photo, and again, this is kind of like 1/4 of the way over, somewhere over in here. Okay, so we've got our book, that's at the lowest point. Then we get this angle kind of going back like that. I'm going to shift it over a little bit because I do have a little extra space here. So this whole composition could stand to be shifted over just a little bit anyway. So I think I'm going to just move that over a little bit, like into here where I kind of initially started. Whoops, I'm running off the page there. I need to start up a little bit higher so you can see what I'm drawing. All right, let's start. What's on camera? Right here, okay. So I'm gonna come up a little bit more. Let's go right up in here. Okay, so I wanna make sure again with cubes, the two most important lines are these. Okay, so I'm gonna come up like this. And then this one, I'm gonna come up like this. Estimate the height, I'm gonna look at this shape, making sure the proportions, I'm trying to get the proportions. Now when I get to the other end of this book, I should be approximately center of my paper, because I think this teapot here is approximately center of the photo. I mean, I could sheet it over, like I said, a little bit to the right, a little bit more if I wanted to go back a little bit further. This one's going to go back in here. And again, these angles are so important because if you draw them at too steep an angle, it's going to push everything up because the book will be up higher, then this will be up higher, and then everything else in relation to that will be up higher. Make sure your corners are plumb. Okay, I'm going to draw this line going back. I can't really see where the back corner is, but I'm just going to extend it a little bit more. I'm going to go back with this. Okay, now I'm going to start in on that teapot. Okay, so I'm going to mark where the bottom of that is, somewhere in here in these shadows. That's where the bottom is going to be. The center is going to be right here. I'll give myself kind of an axis line, but I probably don't even need to go there with that. No, this is going to kind of fit in here. Top of this, I'm going to have to shrink this down. I'm already making this too big, I can see, because I need to be thinking, I'm just going to kind of, well, I need to leave room for that little handle on top. So that means the neck and the cap need to be kind of right in here. And if that's the case, then this needs to be a lot smaller. Okay, I think I made my book a little too big. In order to fit on the screen, I kind of pushed everything up, so I kind of cut down my paper a little bit. So, but that's okay because you're going to run into these, so it's good that I'm running into these to show you how to adjust. So let me adjust my teapot here. I'll get that because I want to make sure that's going to, fit on the paper. Okay, so, well, maybe I'm okay because this book is going to be pretty large because it is closer. Things get smaller as they get further away. At first it seemed like the book was way too big. Let's compare the width of this book compared to the width of the pot. Okay. Book. Oh, so we're good. Okay, my eyes were playing tricks on me. Okay, so that's good. So now we have this goblet over here, this white goblet, and I'm thinking where's center line of this oval? Somewhere in here, the bottom of it, somewhere in here, the base of it, somewhere in here. Center of it is outside the teapot, so I want to make sure the center of it is going to be out here beyond the edge of the teapot. Okay, so I have my two sections. I have the upper cup part and then I have the stem part. So here's a line kind of dividing those. Okay, this is going to kind of clip that teapot there. Then I kind of, simplify the shape of that goblet into something like this here. Base is here. I'll adjust my center axis line and I'll get that more centered up later on. I don't want to think about that too much. And then when I do my base, again, I'm looking at the negative space. All these things need to come together. And if you get too focused in any one area, you're going to be not thinking about other things. It's kind of like when you're on the if you play sports, if you're on the basketball court or on the soccer field, you always need to use that peripheral vision and look at all the different elements, the athletes that are on the field, and not get too focused in any one area. You got to be aware of the whole game and what's going on. So constantly eyes are moving around, looking, comparing here, comparing that, and not getting too fixated on any one thing for any length of time. If you start to do that, you kind of have to shake your head and move on. Okay, so I feel pretty good. That handle will come over here, spout will come up here. Okay, and one last thing, we gotta figure out where is this cup or pot gonna go. Looking at negative space here, looking at spacing, how close to the edge does it come here? Okay, and that's gonna fall, in this area somewhere. So it's very messy, but it's drawn very light. All of those things can easily be erased. It's just very important that you get all of your objects on there before you worry about how good it looks. You want to be thinking about the proportions, the height versus the width of each object, and then how they line up with each other. It's very important because at some point you're going to try to stretch something out and make it too long to fit, being closer to something else. So you have to do that early on. So from here, we change our grip perhaps. We start to use our horizontal and vertical axis lines a little bit more, and we start to perfect these shapes a little bit more and refine them. One last thing you might notice in some of the photographs that the objects look tilted. Okay, for instance, this goblet here, if I run my pencil down through the center of it, it looks tilted a little bit. Okay, same thing with this here. Some of the objects to the left and to the right, whatever's in the center is usually going to look plumb and level. But sometimes you have these objects to the left and to the right that are going to look tilted. That's just photographic distortion. Don't draw them that way. You want to make sure that when you draw them, you correct and make sure that they're plumb and level.